Scheduled board meeting for Monday, October 18th, 2021, and is being held in a hybrid fashion as is authorized by the governor's executive order and legislative action. Item number one is Pledge of Allegiance. Charles, would you, as traditionally do, lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Charles. Item two, public hearing to receive comment on an ordinance for a temporary moratorium on cannabis retail sales in the town of Guilford. This ordinance is designed to give this board and the community an opportunity to engage in discussions related to what is most appropriate for our community in terms of the sale of cannabis related products. I think we probably will also need to take a look at whether or not we would allow for the cultivation as well, the commercial cultivation. It's one of the things I've asked Pete to take a look at. I'm not sure that we have the rights to determine who can farm what, but there are some regulations around the cultivation as well. So, this concept was born after the presentation we received from Bo Yoon and the folks at Developmental Assets for Youth, who have specifically requested that we pause or outright ban the sale of cannabis products as a message to the parents and the young folks in their community as to the dangers of marijuana on the brain development and potential addictive capacities with marijuana. So what I would do is first open it up to any members of the public who would like to make a comment relative to the ordinance itself, which is just to put a moratorium on the establishment of any commercial businesses until June 30th of 2022, which unfortunately will be here before we know it. So that is what is before us. Anyone wishing to comment? Paige?
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, everyone. May I start?
Yes.
Well, thank you to the Board of Selectmen for holding this public hearing on this important issue. It's just another day at the office for me, but I'm sure it's not every Monday before 10 a.m. that we all get to talk about cannabis. My name's Paige Checky. I grew up here on the shoreline of Connecticut, and my family has owned and operated businesses in Guilford for the past 25 years. It's been a long time since my first job at Guilford Savings Bank a decade ago, and I've since worked in the industry professionally for the past 8 years. I also hold one of the nation's first master's degrees in medical cannabis science and therapeutics from the University of Maryland, Baltimore. And today I want to talk about a few things. One, I want to talk about why I think this blanket moratorium denies opportunity to the people of Guilford. Two, I want to share ideas how I think you can craft a thoughtful ordinance regarding this issue. And three, I want to talk about a specific opportunity that I'd like to bring to the town. So regarding the moratorium, I encourage you to take a proactive approach rather than a reactive approach. A blanket moratorium forfeits good opportunities, and it may prohibit entrepreneurs like myself from being able to apply for cannabis business licenses. A requirement to applying is local support and zoning approval. And if this moratorium extends into the period of time when the Department of Consumer Protection begins accepting applications, Guilford may miss out on an opportunity to bring jobs and commerce to the community. I understand that there's other residents that are concerned about retail, and I completely respect that. However, I'm not here to talk about retail. I'm here to talk about production, cultivation, manufacturing, and B2B businesses. It's important to note that the proposed moratorium includes the definition of cannabis establishments from the bill, which includes both retail and production and manufacturing. So my first suggestion is that we take a look at that definition and break it down into categories of what the town is open to and what we're not open to. And while this is a Board of Selectmen hearing, the Planning and Zoning Commission should also be involved in this process, as one way to approach this issue is to look at each potential application on a case-by-case basis, making this a specific issue to the property that the applicant would like zoned and going through a special use permit or conditional use process. I understand that this is also a bandwidth issue in terms of time and resources, and I know you guys are all incredibly busy, but I'm here as a community member that can help you find the right people and resources to craft a thoughtful ordinance. I don't think we should be saying no to jobs, commerce, and good business. $1 billion industry is growing in Connecticut, so why should Guilford say no while other towns and municipalities say yes and reap the benefits? So with input from across the board, other community members and residents, I think an ordinance that is open to new and specific opportunities can be crafted. So to address concerns, let's talk about specific industrial zones where these businesses can locate away from residences, schools, parks, churches, and places of worship. Let's talk about odor control, mitigation requirements. Let's set hours of operation to address traffic concerns. Let's ensure these facilities are safe and secure at all times with enhanced security requirements. Let's require inspections so that these facilities meet these obligations. And let's definitely prohibit consumption in public parks and areas across the town. Now, these are just a couple of items that can be addressed in the ordinance. And if you guys must pass a moratorium, I urge you to shorten the duration, perhaps to January 1st, so that we can start to work on something that takes into account these considerations. At the very least, if our goal here is to prohibit retail, like let's define that instead of using the definition of a cannabis establishment. At the end of the day, I want to be a resource and I want to help so that Guilford can get this right. So please use me if you want, and I will let you all know my email at the end. So it's been a privilege talking at all here today. So thank you again for having this hearing. And now I'd like to discuss a specific opportunity. My family has owned a business and a building at 393 Soundview Road for over 25 years. It's tucked away at the end of I-2, Industrial Zone 2, away from residences, schools, parks, and places of worship. It previously operated as an ISO certified state-of-the-art IVF culture media production laboratory and an air filtration device manufacturing facility. This business employed dozens of local Guilford people over the years, and it was acquired in 2018. This coming year in 2022, the business that acquired those operations is leaving town. And I share that information to let you know that the time is right for this opportunity. It's a 16,000 square foot building. And if we look at the industry in Connecticut today, a close comparison could be CT Pharma. They've operated out of a similarly sized facility in Portland, Connecticut.
Paige, thank you very much for giving us a background on your intended plans and business-wise, but this is to discuss the moratorium. So I would ask that you wrap up at this point, please.
Absolutely. Let's look at, so CT Pharma brought 50 jobs to their community. That was the example. Advanced Grow Labs, they're moving to Stratford. The zoning commission chairman is quoted as saying, I'm 100% for it. Another commissioner said in the CT Post, it looks like a phenomenal business and they'd be a great fit for Stratford. I can't see any reason why we would deny it. So I'm here today because I want to work with local contractors. I want to work with local people. We've hired local, we've bought local, we've spent local. Again, my name is Paige Checky, and it's been a privilege talking to you all today. My email is Paige, Paige, at soundviewgrowthpartners.com. If anybody on the board would like to reach out and continue this conversation, and thanks again.
Thank you, Paige.
I know this is a public hearing, we're not supposed to ask questions, but man.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Paige, your statement this morning is basically based on economics then, chasing money.
I think that we can bring skilled jobs to the area. These jobs, you know,
I just want to make sure that that's basically what you're talking about is that you feel it would have an economic benefit. And you did suggest also that even if you did state that you thought that banning the use of this product in public parks could be part of any future.
Yeah, definitely. I think that.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to make sure what your argument was basically economic and still chasing it.
I have another question, if I could. You mentioned denying opportunities. And what I want to understand, and you seem very well versed in all of this, much more so than I am, are we delaying opportunities? Like, let's say we go through the whole process and decide to go full steam ahead with everything. Have we missed the boat on something at that point, or are we delaying opportunities?
My biggest fear is that the moratorium would extend into the period of time when applications need to be submitted to the state for approval for a license. And if the applicant can't get local support or zoning, they can't apply. So in a sense, we could miss out on these opportunities with the length of the moratorium. And so my suggestion is that we just take a look at that duration, and we can work together on creating a moratorium that clearly defines what the town does and does not want, which I understand retail may not be welcome here, and I support that as well.
So you're saying if the producer might just go elsewhere, abandon Guilford, do it somewhere else?
So,
You just stated that you oppose retail sales also?
I think that there's a lot of community members that are opposed to retail, and I could support them in that. But I don't want to say no to jobs that are skillful and can be on the production side. I understand that community members, everybody has a voice, and I just want to get this right for Guilford.
Paige, I think you're key when you said everybody has a voice, and I think one of the reasons for extending this moratorium to perhaps the end of June is to allow that. What is the application date for these industry with the state? What is the date?
There is no date set yet. They're still working towards a date, but the bill explicitly states that they would aim for retail sales by May of 2022. So my belief is that they're working towards, expanding access and supply prior to allowing some of these 18 existing dispensaries to come online.
Paige, just as a matter of clarification, the ordinance that we're looking at today extends through June 30th, 2022, unless the ordinance is earlier amended or revoked. So there is the possibility that if we successfully conclude in a community-wide engagement and arrive at consensus, it could well meet the deadlines that you're talking about for applications. So this is not something that we're just going to sit and wait until next May to start to figure out with the community. We will be engaging with the community in a variety of formats, hopefully beginning as early as a couple of weeks from now. Bandwidth, as you mentioned earlier, bandwidth sensitivities to the contrary. So we will have the opportunity at some point to do something long before June 30th if we elect to do so.
Understood. I know bandwidth is an issue, so just wanted to highlight that.
Thank you. Anybody else? Is there anyone else wishing to address the board? Thank you, Paige.
Yes.
Name, please. Name and address.
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Deborah O'Neill, and I live off of Moose Hill in Guilford.
Okay.
I have a couple of concerns. I hope that all of you will read the bill, because what hasn't been addressed here are a number of things. First of all, do you all know it's an all cash business? Because since the federal government, okay, so now there's the issue of you have an all cash business, so that draws certain people to that type of situation. Number two, I don't understand what the benefit would be. If you read the bill, it also, the funds that will be obtained from this excise tax and a portion of the municipal tax that's collected will be going to only certain types of businesses. Also, I noticed in the bill, it says that within a year, about 2023, the state's going to consider on-site smoking of the cannabis at these facilities. So isn't anyone concerned about drawing people here that would otherwise not come to our community? They won't be living here. To me, it just seems very dangerous. When I read the bill, there also doesn't seem to be any safeguards as to the product that's being sold, whether it's legal from a legal grow or if it's from an illegal grow. That isn't mentioned in the bill at all. So I don't know what would be the purpose of having this on our community. And I'm sorry, is it Ms. Checky? Are you telling us that the people that you're going to hire, you're saying 50 jobs or whatever it is, are they going to, so you're going to pay them more than say $10 an hour? You're going to pay them enough in order to cover all the charges, so to speak, that the community is going to have to pay for this, because it's a benefit to you, because you're going to make a large amount of money. Because I think other places like probably Middletown, Clinton, I suspect they're going to not allow this type of facility in their town. So I'm trying to figure out what is the benefit of having this. I don't understand it. We're not going to make any money from it. And I also am wondering, if you apply for the license, or anyone else does, are you also applying for licenses to have grow facilities? I mean, am I going to see giant greenhouses on Route 1 that are filled with, marijuana? And these places typically also, the grow facilities, as I've seen in California where I used to live, there's going to have to be huge barbed wire fences around them, because in order to prevent, obviously people from going in and stealing the product. And also in California, which I'm much more familiar with, there is a big issue with illegal grows, because once it becomes a recreational, then the state and the federal government stop supplying grants for the police services, because now it's no longer a crime. So that also encourages illegal grows. So I'm trying to figure out what is the benefit. Now, I'm all for medical marijuana. I totally approve of medical marijuana facility in Guilford, because that does have some safeguards. And reading the bill, there seems to be some assumption that this is going to erase the illegal sale, which is just ridiculous. Marijuana stores, legal, are so expensive. I can't imagine that anybody who is a regular marijuana smoker is now going to say, oh, let me pay 3 times as much. I just think it's a fallacy, and I don't know why there is this run to have these types of facilities. When I was reading something about Colorado, there's even, when people are smoking pot, let's face it, it's like having a couple of drinks. And if you're going to say no, that's just not true. It's just isn't. But what about people working here in town? Are they, and somebody is high, and, these factories, I mean, are you going to allow them to have any kind of drug testing? Because I've also read they're thinking about throwing that out the window too, because it's kind of like, what's the point? And if you read the bill, it also refers to the fact that I looked at it the other day, but I know there's something in there about police officer cannot simply stop someone because they reek of marijuana. Of course, if you smelled like alcohol, they could give you an alcohol test. But I don't feel comfortable that I'm driving on Moose Hill, where I live. People drive recklessly already now. Sometimes I have to pull over because they're driving so damn fast. And now I've got to also contend with people who are high. I mean, I don't understand why any of you would want this in your community, especially when you have children waiting at bus stops and stuff. What about the school bus drivers? What kind of checks are going to be on this? And particularly the idea of people smoking on site. That's really, so they're going to smoke in the parking lot, and then they're going to get in their car, and then they're going to drive by my house, or while my neighbor's daughter is waiting to get picked up at the bus stop. I don't understand why this doesn't concern any of you. You all seem to be hepped up on the fact that it's going to bring in revenue. I think the amount of revenue it's going to bring in is not going to be commensurate with the amount of money it's going to cost the rest of us to have to pay for the damage that's done. So
Deborah, thank you. Thank
I'm
you
very
for those.
concerned about that, and
Right.
yeah, I think it's going to be a huge problem.
Deborah, thank you for your comments. I just want to make one point of clarification. I'm assuming you weren't referring to this board as being all hepped up to get the tax revenue.
Well, I hope not, but it seems to be this, well, we're going to, talk about a moratorium. Well, let's make it so that if you have the moratorium, Mr. Checky is talking about there has to be a certain point where she has to file an application, as do others. She's, I'm sure, not the only one that's interested in this. So if the moratorium doesn't allow her to file an application, and so what's the point of having the moratorium then? See, if you want the
point of the moratorium, Deborah, is to determine whether or not we would make a permanent decision relative to marijuana, the sale of cannabis products in town.
Oh, all right. Well,
That is the process. We are looking for community engagement, like you are providing to us today, as well as what Paige is providing, to have a full discussion, full disclosure discussion over a period of time. Because this board could make a universal decision tomorrow relative to what we want to do. Of course, we would have to get the ordinance passed at a town meeting,
right.
like the public hearing, and we're going to do later on today. It's my anticipation we'll do it later on today at this meeting. So that's the reason. This board has taken no position on this at all. I know we all have individual opinions about the use and the legislation, is it having legalized it? But this board has not collectively made a decision, nor has there been a conversation about us looking forward to tax revenue. Quite honestly, I think it's going to be a bit of a challenge because we have to collect that tax revenue.
I think it's going to be a huge challenge. And also the fact that it's all cash business. That's what has been a big concern in other states where they've had to then hire security. It's just becomes an issue. But you're all reading the bill, right? So you've all read the bill over.
I already have. Yes, I have.
Because it's really important. In the details are where the issues are.
Got it.
So thank you.
No, thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to address the board? Is that, or go ahead, Jorge?
Yes, good morning. My name is George Cabrera. I'm a business representative for the United Food and Commercial Workers Union. Thank you for giving me a brief moment here to address you. We represent 1.3 million union members across America and Canada, as well as over 10,000 cannabis workers throughout Connecticut. And I'm here just to encourage you to consider the jobs that would come as a result of if you allow cannabis in your town. We pride ourselves in making sure that these jobs are good paying jobs with benefits, with good quality of life, and allows people to balance their work and life. And we are encouraged, the legislation, as you may know, has a labor peace component agreement to it, which basically means whoever comes to your town, if you so allow it, is required to allow the workers here to freely choose whether or not they want to join a union, free from any interference. And we pride ourselves in making sure that workers have a voice on the job. And if this is something your town does, we would very much like an opportunity to represent those workers. So our position is obviously every town has the right to decide whether this is a business they want in town. It seems like you're going to be deliberating that today and in the days and weeks to come. We want to encourage you to know that we believe that this is something that has happened. As you know, it's law. It's going to happen. We believe there's going to be lots of growth and opportunity for good paying jobs. And we hope to be a partner in making sure that those good paying jobs in Guilford are good for the workers and provide a work-life balance and a good future for those workers. So I appreciate the opportunity to let me speak.
George, thank you very much.
George, what is your address?
I'm in Hamden. I'm a Hamden resident.
And
live off of Dunbar Hill.
and again, you're specifically concerned about jobs and the money that can be made?
Yes, sir. Our concern is making sure that workers have a good paying jobs with benefits. And as I mentioned, we represent over 10,000 cannabis workers across the country. primarily on the West Coast and some on the East Coast. And our interest is making sure that if this does happen, that those workers have a union, have a voice on the job to make sure they have good pay and benefits.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you, George. Appreciate it. Is there anyone else wishing to address the board?
For the record, can we ask for the address of the first speaker?
Yes.
Yes, Paige Checky, could you provide an address, please?
Sure, I'm talking on behalf of 393 Soundview Road, Guilford, Connecticut.
So your
Residence,
address.
where
Your
you
residence.
live.
339 Bartlett Drive, Madison, Connecticut.
Thank you.
And are you a principal owner of that property?
I have the right to talk about the property, yeah.
Well, it doesn't mean it's yours. Okay, anyone else wishing to address the board on this topic? Are there any comments from board members at this point? Or we can talk about it because it's on the agenda a little bit later. Good. Thank you. With that, we'll close the public hearing and move on to item number 3. Public forum relative to anything on the board's agenda. Hearing none, move on to item 4, and that's to approve minutes. 4.1 is October 4, 2021, regular meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes. Second.
Second, all right, any changes, questions, concerns, edits?
I'm here.
Hearing none, let me try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Item 5, Finance Director Mary Jane Malavasi, 5.1, has received a monthly report. Mary Jane,
Good morning.
good morning. Going to start with revenue?
Sure. Couple items I'd like to specifically address on revenues. Although you can see our collection rate is higher than we were at this time last year, 53.5% compared to 48.3%. First item I'd like to address is the Selectmen's revenue. Included in that close to $30,000 is the first of the energy performance contracts, Johnson Control rebate. A majority of that rebate belongs to the Board of Education, and in October, approximately $28,000 of that money was forwarded over to them. So that number will be down when we look at this next month. The next item is tax collection. As you can see, we have rebounded with our tax collection, and we're actually higher than we were last year at this time. I remember last month, the collection seemed to be down. There was a large bank deposit that came in at the end of the month that is reported now in these numbers for September. So I'm not seeing any concerns in tax collection at this point. The next item I'd like to talk about is golf. Although golf seems down from last year, they are certainly on track to meet their budgetary revenues this year, still showing a strong usage of the golf facility for the first quarter of this year. Public Works also looks like it's down, but with no major storm. For our residents to have a large amount of debris, our stump dump is not seeing as much activity, so it's down to a more manageable area where we would normally see it at this time. Just to note that Youth and Family Services still have number of cases. Their caseload is still high at this point, so their revenue is showing that as well. That's all I had to discuss this morning, unless you have any questions.
Okay.
It looks good. Good news on the tax
Yep.
collection.
Exactly. We're good, I think, Mary Jane.
Okay.
Yep.
We'll move on to expenditures. I really don't have much to report on expenditures. We're pretty much right on track where we normally are at the end of September. So unless you have any any questions, I really don't have anything major to bring to your attention.
I don't see any wide discrepancies between last year and this year. exception of maybe capital, that's another story. And no other questions, Mary Jane?
No.
Good. Well, hopefully we'll have more questions this evening, Mary Jane.
Looking forward to it.
Okay, anybody have any concerns or even look at the warrants? No concerns there. Medical?
Medical, as you can see, our September claims were higher than our monthly budget. Again, I'll repeat that we are still unclear as to the effect of COVID on our medical fund, but it does appear that obviously our claims are starting to meet and exceed our budget, which we have not seen in the last 18 months or so. So at the moment, we're projecting a surplus of about $236,000, which is much smaller than the expected surpluses that we were seeing last year at this time. September did bring forward some catastrophic claims, about $575,000 of claims greater than 75,000, and we're starting to show a small amount of covered. So we'll have to just see where that goes for the year. Any questions?
Yeah, Mary Jane, I know the first couple of months of the year are somewhat unpredictable on the medical benefits thing. Take a look, the August number was 1.5 million. There was nothing in July, so obviously you assume half and half, 750. And is there some additional catch up in September? Because we're still running below our projected expenditures. Because you're showing a projected surplus at this point of $236,000. So, so less of a concern than the number of $1 million being over on 1 month. The previous 2 months theoretically were below our target. So
Exactly.
Can I ask a clarification? It appears there's one catastrophic claim, right? You have a total excess of $75,000.
No, that 575,000 is a cumulative
Oh,
of I want to say there's 5 or 6 claims
oh, I
that
see.
have already hit the 75,000.
Okay.
It's not just one claim.
But the actual insurance doesn't kick in until we're at 150,000 for a single claim?
Right.
That's the next column?
Exactly right. So out of that 575,000, out of those 5 or 6 claims, one specific claim so far has gone over the 150,000 by 14,200.
Okay, and that amount, that 14,200 is what's covered by our excess policy.
Exactly right.
Okay, thank you.
Is this normally the pattern? I always thought the pattern was at the end of the year or at the beginning of each year, there was a little buildup and that there would be greater medical expenses. That's not the pattern. I always thought that was the pattern.
I'm not quite sure I understand the comment, but July 1 starts a new clock ticking. So all of those claims start at 0. So they have to work themselves up to the 75 to even get on our radar screen. And then they have to work up to 150.
So there isn't a backlog of claims necessarily that can take place in the library.
So clarification.
All right.
No.
All right. Anything further from Mary Jane? No? Mary Jane, thank you very much.
I just had a couple comments on the capital funds that I gave you.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to show you that on the school fund 216, the 5 bonds that we closed out last year are no longer being reported. So we'll be looking at some new items to close out this year. I am looking to close out 2 or 3 bond authorizations on the town side this year on fund 217. So that is, stay tuned on that. We'll be coming forward with that at a later date.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you, Mary Jane.
Thank you.
Item 6, Town Engineer Janice Blasiak. 6.1, consider and take possible action on purchase of a new fuel tank system for the Public Works Department. Janice, good morning.
Good morning.
I
How
see
are
you have
you?
you have Michael with you as well. Huh?
Yes, I have Assistant Town Engineer Michael Cicciarella with me. He did most of the work on this project, including the plans, and I have him here first to introduce him since he's been on board for several months now, and he's doing a great job, and to back me up if I can't answer one of your questions. So Tom was supposed to be here too, but unfortunately, as you know, his father has passed away, so he's not here. But we have been working with Tom Fillion, the Public Works Director, because we do need to remove our old underground storage tanks at the Public Works facility. They have officially expired as of January of this year. And we were challenged with whether to replace in kind underground or better yet to do above ground tanks. Did some legwork with some of that. Tom did as well, getting some proposals and talking with contractors. The cost for underground was going to be probably very similar, and yet you're still then in the ground and having to worry about monitoring and spills and compliance with the underground storage tank regulations at the state. So it was decided that the best approach is really to do an above ground tank system. And the opportunity of having 50 driveway now as our owned property adjacent to our public works provided an opportunity of where to locate this above ground tank system, because the current DPW site is rather tight for location of such a system and having the adequate circulation. So Michael set out to lay out, the location of the tank system on the 50 driveway site, taking into account what you see before you is a proposal to purchase all of the equipment for the system, including the tank, dispensers, new monitoring system, as well as the new Petroven dispensing, controlled dispensing system that we utilize already with an upgrade. And so we'll be going forward with a planning and zoning site plan approval for this I believe in November. But because you can see we have a time lead on ordering these tanks, we wanted to bring this to you for hopefully your approval so that we can get the tanks ordered, so that timing wise we'll be lined up to implement the project hopefully in early December.
Janice, thank you very much for that overview. I want to just highlight, and it's something that's in your in the memo that you supplied us with, and that's the compliance with the Connecticut DEEP regulations. We've had little choice but to do this, and I think we already have the capital expenditure approved based on the demonstrated need. And what is encouraging here is we've been telling the Connecticut DEP for some time that we're planning on replacing those tanks. Now we have the opportunity to move forward and then come into full compliance with DEEP regulations. So thank you for working. Charlie?
In that note, I can appreciate that something must be done and everything, but well, we all know the situation with that site down there, and we're looking, I guess with a 20-year warranty, that must be the 20-year lifespan of the new tank too.
Yes, and the thing to point out, Charlie, is if we do end up relocating our public works facility, the nice thing with this system is it can be at least the tank and all the appliances.
That was exactly my question.
They can be moved.
Yeah.
So whereas an underground tank cannot
Right.
be relocated. So this is
Right.
the beauty of this system as well, as as we look to possible movement of the facility.
It's a perfect segue into my next question. You anticipated that question, but what about the beauty of this thing? Is it 6,000 gallons? Is that what the 6,000, 4,000 represents?
So currently at the Public Works facility, we have a larger diesel tank. I believe that's 4,000 in the ground, and then a smaller gasoline tank at 3,000 in the ground. And speaking with and comparing pricing for the above ground tank, it was decided to go with a slightly larger capacity tank. So we have the 6,000 diesel, which has the higher use at DPW for filling there, as well as then upgrading to a 4,000 gasoline.
Well, my question is, how unsightly is this going to be? I know it's next to a railroad and everything else, but I mean, is it? It's 6,000. Oh, okay. I guess.
The plans were sent along with the application, with what I sent you, and I believe there is in the plan set, you can see a kind of a photo like rendering of what these systems look like. The DOT maintenance facility on Route 1 just recently replaced their underground system with an above ground system. It's kind of full front and center on Route 1, unfortunately, but you can see it right from the road. It does need to have bollards around it for protection so that, vehicles can't run into the thing and cause a major disaster. The tank itself, the Convelt tank, is pretty bulletproof in terms of its construction. It's a concrete tank system enclosed around a steel tank. So it's quite durable in and of itself. And then we're looking into the need for also fencing in the facility if required, working with the code officials, both the fire marshal and the building official, in terms of what other safety measures need to be put in place if need be. And that we're looking at maybe fencing in the whole kind of parking area for 50 driveway to address that if it's a need for security as well.
Yeah, I just think of the trucks backing around and all that. Like,
yeah, there'll be bollards all the way around it, which will protect, and the tank from being struck by any vehicles.
Just a reverse question, Janice. At some point in the future, if the town sells that property because we move our facilities elsewhere, would it be attractive to a future buyer that the tanks are there rather? I mean, I guess you look at both ways of that, whether we're going to move them to a new site or whether as part of the potential sale of that property, would those tanks be considered a positive in a sale of?
Depending on the business.
It depends on what one.
Ground's got to be
Yeah.
a plus.
Yeah.
We
I
have
mean,
that
it's-
flexibility though.
Right.
Yes, it's an investment in the property because obviously, it's going to be built and on site. If there was the need for a similar type business to have their own fueling station, then yes, I'm not sure that would be the case, but we could always deal with that at the time of future sale.
Can you remind us where this is budgeted?
Thanks.
I'm
Where it's
sorry.
budgeted- Where it's budgeted?
It's Tom Fillion had it in his capital budget. I believe it was just over $400,000 was budgeted. So I just do want to point out that this is for the purchase of all the appliances, say, for the system. We still are awaiting proposals from state contractors and other contractors on the actual removal of the old system has to take place as well. We're kind of GCing this project ourselves and trying to move it forward in a timely manner since we are kind of out of compliance currently with our current system. And so we'll be bringing to you future approvals for removal of the old underground system, as well as some of the connections that need to be done by licensed professionals for this new system once it's purchased and put in place.
Mary Jane, where in the capital budget is this?
It's part of your last year's bonding authorization.
Thank you, okay.
Yeah.
Chad.
Yeah, I remember the conversation about it. I just couldn't find it in here, but that explains it. Thank you.
All right. Any further questions on this? No, Janice, thank you very much for detailed information and justification. Is there a motion to purchase the new fuel tank system for Public Works Department?
I'll make the motion. Needs to be done.
Second.
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 Let me try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Janice and Michael, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Matt,
Yes.
I just wanted to point the board to the multi-year capital project fund report that I provided for Fund 217. And if you look at the end of the third page, you'll see the Public Works fuel tank replacement under the fiscal 22 bond authorization, the 400,000.
Thank you.
Right there.
Mary Jane, are these documents something that you can put into the board pack library so that we could refer to them when we have questions? That it's great that we happen to have them today, but I know you don't do them every month, nor should you need to.
I think once they're on board pack, they are part of the library, but that's a Tracy question, not a Mary Jane.
I mean, they are if we check back and figure out what meeting they were in, but okay, thank you.
And Mary Jane has committed to update these on what, a quarterly basis with the Board of Finance? So, you know, at worst, it's a couple of months old, but at best, it's current.
Yeah, good. Very good.
All right,
I'm sure Tracy will be sure it's in your library.
you got it.
Thank you.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, item 7, discuss and take possible action on the purchase of 2 new Wausau plows. Ralph Casey's here. Ralph, you want to come up to just give us a little background on it, please? There you go.
Okay, these 2 plows will be taking the place of 2 Tenco plows, which are about 25 years old, that we've been actually sticking and gluing together for the last 3 or 4 years. We decided on Wausau. We have Wausau 11-foot plows for all our big trucks. They've actually turned out to be one of the best designs out there. Very heavy-duty plow. They don't really have too many inherent problems. The only thing that's ever really occurred is usually damage if one of our guys hits something with them.
That could happen to any plow.
And that happens with anything, right? But these 2 plows, they will be taking the place of 2 plows on 2 trucks that plow continuously in every storm. So they're going to be first line equipment. And like I said, we decided on Wausau because it is the better of everything that's out there.
Ralph, do you think if we approve this, you'll have them in time for?
I can't guarantee you that. We're hoping to get them by December. We may not see them until sometime in January. It's going to really depend. I mean, we've gotten the 2 Tencos that we have. We've gotten them so that they're useful. You know, I mean, we're not going to let 2 trucks go without plowing. So I mean, we'll keep them. You know, we'll keep the Tencos going as long as we have to.
How big of a deal is changeover when you do get to do it?
Actually, there is no. We're going to get these plows are going to fit exactly to the truck. So because we can have these plows set up any way we want. We can have them with a quick hitch. We can have them with pins. So we'll set them up as a pin design, just like the older plows are.
And do we keep in inventory the wear edge or whatever you call the bottom edge for these things?
Cutting edges are in inventory, right?
So are they interchangeable between what we have now and the new plow? Or?
Yeah, everything that we buy is standard highway punch, with the exception of we have 1 or 2 smaller plows, 8-foot plows, 9-foot plows that are different than the standard highway punch. Those are park and recs, and those are Western plows. That's that V design, where they, the outside edges move.
But my question really is, it sounds like you've answered it. Whatever, we're not going to have any replacement parts in inventory go to waste. We'll be able to use what.
No, right. Everything we purchase is standard highway punch. So 9-foot standard highway, 11-foot standard highway.
Any other questions? Well,
Let's hope we don't need them.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was about to say.
Exactly.
You got them, you probably won't need them.
That's right. That's right. All right. So is there a motion to?
Matt?
Yes.
Yeah, can I ask a question? It's Mitch.
Yes.
Ralph, are these the ones that were supposed to be approved by the Public Works Commission first and did not get through that, or they've been approved?
These are two plows that should go through the commission, right? So Tommy asked me to come up here today and put in the exception that we would have to go through the commission and get their approval first. So in other words, if you guys approved of them today, he would still have to get the approval from the commission, correct?
Thank you for clarification.
Thanks, Mitch.
Good, thanks, Mitch. All right. With, there you go, just a second.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, let me try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, hearing none, motion carries. Ralph, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Give our condolences.
Yeah,
Yes, please.
Yes, I will. Thank you.
okay. Pete, you're on the line? Item 8, consider and take possible action on an ordinance, the ordinance which was published as part of the board pack and the agenda and available to the public reads a little differently than the language on the agenda. On the agenda, it says just retail, cannabis retail sales. The ordinance itself is an ordinance establishing a moratorium on cannabis establishments in the town of Guilford. Cannabis establishments, as Pete Barrett has tells me, is all of the things that we are contemplating, growing, et cetera. So it was comprehensive. So just wanted to make that clarification before we discuss and act on this. Pete, are we okay there?
Yes, we are. You know, the agenda just calls it something different, but what was noticed to the public and what was made available on the website and to the board is the ordinance that appears in front of you now. That's an ordinance establishing a moratorium on cannabis establishments in the town of Guilford, which, as Matt says, is quite a bit broader, includes the product packagers, delivery services, cultivators, etc.
I'd like to move it, you know, with the understanding that we're going to move forward with, you know, whatever steps is public input and everything towards a more permanent thing.
Thank you.
I'll second it, but I have a comment.
Certainly.
One of the people speaking at the public comments regarding this morning, one of her points that she made was, we don't want those people coming into town if we approve of a business, whether it's growing or selling. And I just would like to personally say, I don't think that's a valid reason to, whichever way we make this discussion. There's businesses in town now that some of us may choose to not frequent, but we have them because
I don't even like the words of those people.
Well, I didn't like it either, and
that's it. That as well.
So
that and the fact that, you know, assumptions were made about this board and that type of thing, so I completely agree with you that
Right.
that those kinds of statements don't do the community any good.
Right, and I think in terms of denying opportunities by having this moratorium, it's the only responsible thing that we can do as a board. We hardly had any time to think about this.
I have not read the bill.
Yeah, and it only passed.
And it's going to be
Another reason
regulatory, if I, excuse me.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm real brief. In addition to the bill, there's going to be books of regulatory coverage on this as well and guidance that'll come down. I'm just saying there's a lot to read and a lot for us to digest.
Exactly, same point.
Would
Okay.
it be possible for Tracy to get to us a copy?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, that way it'll be part of the record and give me an opportunity to read it.
I will also make available to you something I've been sharing with Pete on a weekly basis. Shipman and Goodman, which is our bond counsel, has set up a cannabis insider newsletter. So I'll add something to your email every week. So it comes out on Thursdays, I think.
Great, that's all I
I've been
need.
getting it and reading it.
Our names listed, the Cannabis Insight. That's
Yeah.
something I really need to hear.
And I also bristled at the terminology used by one of the presenters. I think, I'm hoping that it was specifically related to cash businesses as opposed to those types of people. Now, there are some very, very prominent establishments in this town that are cash only. I know of at least one eatery that's cash
Yeah,
only. And,
yeah.
I would not want someone to suggest that, some of
Anything
those
from-
businesses in town also are not welcome. So,
Very good
thank,
point.
thank you for bringing that up, all everyone. So,
One reason for me to support the moratorium, which is what we're talking about here, the moratorium, not whether or not we ultimately allow this, is that the moratorium will give us time to see what surrounding towns are doing, which does go to the point about people from other towns, all kinds of people from all kinds of towns coming here.
right.
So,
Good point.
So I have a couple quick observations, and I second all the language of how something is presented is very important, just as important as the substance of what's presented. And I think that says a lot very often, and how something's going to be received and processed. But just the four people who spoke, each presented an interesting, you could not have planned a different perspective of stakeholders. So, which I hope is multiplied many times over when we have public hearings on the substance of this, that we'll have a chance to do by June. So I think it's critical to have this moratorium while we digest this. And I think it's gives us a chance to be much more thoughtful and appreciate people's different perspectives.
I did think it was a little ironic about bringing jobs to town, which sure, but we can't even get people to fill the jobs that we have in town and in the state and in the country. So I'm not dismissing that, because of course we always think about growth in that direction, but my gosh.
And I will also share with you the business plan that was forwarded to me by Page Checking, which I looked at briefly. I'm not in the business of entertaining applications before planning and zoning. And the last thing I want to talk about is, as she mentioned a couple of times, to get planning and zoning input, where would you put it, when, et cetera. I think we had all discussed that we felt this should be done at a policy level and not do social, basically this is social engineering, all right, to some degree, determining what is right and what is not right and what is good for people and not good for people. And I, for one, don't think that the zoning code should be the methodology by which we determine that. So,
Although her point that it should be by special permit is actually probably well taken. If we have input on that, I think that'd be really helpful.
Yeah.
If we have to delegate that to the zoning commission to adopt the percent, but that seems to be the way to do it. This way you have a little more case by case analysis and whether it makes sense for any particular location.
I agree with Matt that the decision belongs at this board.
Yeah, and great. Terrific.
And just for my own personal edification and perhaps people listening or watching, there's not 169, there's 169 towns, but there's not 169 licenses. Is that correct? So there is competition to this?
I think you will be able to have a license if you have over a certain number of folks in town.
But it's just one entity per town?
Yeah, we're limited to one based on our population.
Okay.
it's up to 25,000.
Yeah, I think it is.
Okay.
Okay.
Another reason why we have to read the bill.
You can't get away from it. Okay, and it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Pete, are we okay at this point?
Yep, you're fine.
Thank you. All right, let me try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Thank you all. Item 9 is appointments and resignations. I have one to add. It would be 9.3. Gail Katowski for the Marina Commission. Is there a motion?
I'll move that to the agenda.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. 9.1, act on a recommendation to appoint Don Kowalski to the Shellfish Commission to fill a vacancy for a term to expire on February 28th, 2025. I'd like to make that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, let me try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. 9.2, act on a resignation received from Maureen Rauchi from the Human Rights Commission. I'll make that motion with appreciation and regret, but as you can see from her letter, she needs to be focusing her activities elsewhere. So-
Very, very heartfelt letter. Very
Yes,
nice.
it was.
Yes.
Yes, it was. So,
Did we get a second?
yeah, I think we have a second. Oh, no, do we have?
No, you're saying.
Oh, I'll second it.
You're in a second. Let me try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. 9.3, and that is to appoint Gail Katowski to the Marina Commission. And that date is, hold on, to expire on November 30th, 2023. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
And a second?
Second.
Let me try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. All right, now we're on to request for the use of town property. 10.1, act on request for the Guilford Fund for Education, place a sign on green advertising its trivia bee taking place November 4th, 2021. Is there a motion?
Make that motion.
Is it a second?
Second.
Are we gonna get that?
It's just more promising than a spelling bee, I'm just saying.
Yeah, fun.
We haven't been approached to put a team in.
Not yet, but I think we just sort of sent a red flag up the pole.
You got it. Yeah, probably.
Thank you so much.
Well, you were always the judge in that.
I know.
You're gonna win without having to embarrass us.
I know.
Not a dictionary.
Like the rest of us.
Yeah.
All right,
Encyclopedic.
let me try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. 10.2, act on a request from Guilford Interfaith to place a sign on green advertising its lasagna dinner taking place November 11th, 2021. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Second, let me try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Before we go to committee reports, there is one other item I'd like to add to the agenda, and that would be a discussion with land acquisition relative to a request on a potential property. Is there a motion to add? And we'll do that under executive session after public forum.
So moved.
And a second? Second, let me try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Item 11, committee reports. Sandy, anything?
Well, we have reached out to the two principals in the Woodruff project, the not-for-profit entity that would be managing it. His name, I can't believe I can't remember their name. Neighbor Works, New Horizons, and also the architect connected, Karen Patrick and Associates. And we keep getting the same answer that really we are at the mercy of the Department of Housing of the state. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean that we are waiting for their funding approval. We have high hopes that will come through. It's just hasn't been signed off on yet.
Okay, thank you. It's my understanding that the Department of Housing is viewing this proposal in Guilford very favorably.
That's correct.
In fact, the housing commissioner, who got her start as an advocate and part of the Apple Tree Lane projects, has recently reached out to Chris Widmer about his project.
Oh, good.
So we are getting some attention.
As we say, towns like ourselves are supposed to have 10% of affordable housing stock, and we have about 2%, but, and you think, oh boy, we have a long way to go, but the various initiatives and we're trying to stay on top of this, and our 2% percentage is actually a positive in the overall in the state.
Great. It is.
Just, I'm not getting too far into this. What is the threshold for an affordable housing unit? Like, let's say that it's just somebody who's got a tiny cape
It's
somewhere.
based on the median,
Median household income,
Median house-
60 or 80% of
right.
median household income for a specific community.
right,
So ours is 108. So affordable housing at 60% of $110,000
it's like
is
$65,000,
$65,000, which is a teacher's salary.
So
So-
that's in other words, you should be able to live in a home for that amount.
Yes.
And then, so in addition to rental units, it could happen to include housing units.
Yes.
That are purchased in individual homes or
Right.
condos.
Right.
That are affordable at that number.
right.
And that's the
So whatever
the
that.
Great Hill project that Chris Whitmer's doing is home ownership.
Yeah,
And the price is up to $270,000, I think. is
Yeah.
the-
and so the assumption is whatever mortgage would be to carry that.
Right. And then when it's sold, it still retains that
It's deed restricted.
deed restricted.
That's the essential number. A number of folks have pointed out that the Quantico Hills Condominium Association clearly qualifies under guidelines for
60
affordability.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
Yeah.
However, they are not deed restricted. So if they were deed restricted, our number would probably be 3%.
Right.
Or 4%.
Right.
Okay.
yeah, that's kind of where I was getting. So I mean, it feels to me that there are, so, okay, we can get into this offline. Thank you
Right.
for the report. Thank you.
So that's it.
That's it for me.
Yeah, okay, I guess we could do it offline, but, you know, using your example, I mean, there's quite a few units up there. What would be a ballpark estimate of, how much would a 3% increase?
Oh,
I don't know.
We've got some numbers.
And not just a single, I mean, I knew you weren't, but I think there's a few other condominium developments in town that have, who would meet that requirement if they were
I just
deed
wondered if,
restricted.
when the state or whoever looks at those kinds of things, if we could footnote that, yes, they aren't. Those.
We've had those discussions and it's acknowledged. Every community has those kind of, most communities, I wouldn't say every community, most communities have those. And again, I'll give you, because I do these kind of things, I've been tracking sales prices on properties in town versus the appraisal price, just to get a sneak peek at, and by the way, the number is about 33 to 35% higher than the appraised price. And my data sample now has 215 or 220 properties in it. So, but anyway, I just recalled seeing a couple up at Quantico Hills going for 110, 120, or $130,000. And their appraised prices were in the 70s and 80s. So,
And the other condo, I think that could fit that is it Walden 2 or Walden
Yeah.
3? I watch those and a lot of those are in the 100 to 200.
200 range,
Yeah.
right? So, but I can have George pull the numbers.
Yeah, George could
George
do
can get
some kind of extrapolation.
Yeah, George can pull the numbers because,
Yeah.
the state reports, he's much more familiar with those, and we'll share that information. Okay, correspondence billing report, anything there? Anybody have anything under old business? New business? Public forum, anyone wishing to address the board in public forum? Okay, no, right, is there a motion to go into executive session for the purposes of discussing a action around a targeted land acquisition property?
So moved.
Second. Before we call the motion, I'm going to invite Gary, who is on the line now, and Kevin as well, for an executive session. I think we can, and Trace will let you know when we come back in.
Taking hay up.
Okay, is there a motion to come out of executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Second, Kelly Mines, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, none motion carries. There were no motions made, no actions taken during the executive session. But on the heels of that, there is a request, and I'll make the motion that we approve going out for an appraisal on the targeted property that was discussed in executive session. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further questions or comments? Let me try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. If there's nothing further, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
That's- Thank you. Good meeting.
That's good. I
Very
just
good.
want to say to you all before we leave, I won't be here next time because my daughter's expecting a baby.